Good morning from Kyoto. In this video, I'm going to talk about 9 bad habits that will stop you from progressing in your photography. Today we're in Kyoto, yesterday we were in Nara. The video will start yesterday because I forgot to do this bit. This video is also sponsored by Bellroy, more on them later on. And that's it. Bad habit 0.1, sort your hair out before leaving the hotel room. The first habit that will hold you back is blindly following trends. Now, don't get me wrong, there's nothing inherently bad with following a trend. It's a great way to explore a new type of photography, a new style of photography, a new way to edit. But if you follow the trend so much that you make your entire portfolio, entire body of work surrounding that trend or in that particular style, then you will not have your own voice and you'll build an audience around that trend. And when eventually that trend fades away, it's no longer popular, or if you decide to actually shoot what you really want, then you're kind of stuck because your entire portfolio is literally around something that's not even your own voice. This has been quite common when maybe 6 years ago, 5 years ago on Instagram, you saw a lot of nighttime photography in London with the steel wool and light trails and all of this creative stuff. And don't get me wrong, it looks cool. But there were a few photographers, I remember, who made it their entire identity. And initially the likes kept coming in, the followers kept coming in. But when that trend fizzled out, which it would, trends fizzle out, then they were kind of stuck. And they tried to do other things and no one liked their photos and their accounts went silent. Obviously, don't just do photography for social media unless that's your thing. But at the same time, just be aware that getting stuck with another trend is not going to be great for your long-term photography success. Let's just say that. The next habit is focusing only on the theory. You can learn about photography from a book, from a YouTube video, from a podcast, but there's a time and a place for focusing on theory, and soon enough you'll need to go out into the real world and actually take photos. And this habit is from personal experience, because when I first started photography, I must have spent a month or two, not even shooting, just binge watching videos, reading about it. And when I went out with a camera, I thought I knew what I was doing until I went out and realized I had no idea what I was doing. The point is that theory is good. Theory has a time and a place. It's a good way to learn a new trick. It's a good way to learn how to think a little bit differently, but it's not a replacement for actually going out and taking photos. And even though you might feel productive watching a YouTube video, even this one, or reading a book about photography, it's very different when you actually go out and shoot. So when you first learn photography, or even later in your journey, don't focus too much on the theory. Put more focus into actually going out and taking photos, because that is what will make you a better photographer. As photographers, we aim to have a clear and defined style, to the point where if someone is flicking through Instagram and they come across our work, they can see it immediately just by how the image looks. The thing with style, it's not something that you can just get. It's not a lens that you can just go to the shop and buy. It takes a very long time, and there's a lot that goes into creating your style other than just the color grade. You know, what camera you use, what lens you use, where you shoot, what lighting conditions you go for, etc. And even though we desperately want to have our own style, when we get it, it might be very tempting to force that style on everything you do. I've definitely done that. And as I progressed in my photography, I realized that in many cases, a particular style that works for one location or one type of subject or one type of lighting scenario will probably not work for something else. For example, my photos on a cold, dreary, cloudy, rainy afternoon or night in Tokyo are vastly different to the images from a happy, sunny weekend in Kamakura or Spain or Portugal or anywhere else in the world. Because if I try and force my cold night Tokyo style on a happy, sunny beach type of day, it's just going to look crap. And vice versa, if I try and edit my moody, cold night Tokyo photos in the same way that I would edit a bright, sunny day in Spain, it's just not going to work. So if you have a particular style, try to adapt it, or better yet, create a new look for different types of photography, rather than just trying to force one particular style on every single scenario. This video is sponsored by Bellroy, but instead of a typical ad read, let me walk you through my favorite travel bag, which is the 26-liter Venture Travel Edition. Let me first show you what's inside, just so you can have an idea of what it can hold. It opens up in a clamshell mode like this, and here I've got some toiletries, bottle, electronics, and a giant packing cube that can easily hold enough clothes for at least a week. Inside there's a little pouch for your laptop, so that can come out. And if you're not using a packing cube, you can strap everything down with this as well. You've got a pocket on the side for some accessories, and also here you've got a nice pocket there and another pocket there for all your documents. That's also RFID protected as well. Moving on to the outside, we have a nice rubbery finish as well as weather resistant zips, and a nice pocket on the outside that you can put your camera if you wish. And the last feature, which is by far my favorite one, is underneath here is a zipped pocket, and inside is a folding tote. Not only can you use that if you have too much stuff, if you've done some shopping, but also the tote, using these clips, can attach on the outside of the bag, therefore freeing your hands if you need to. Last but not least, on the other side, some nice straps, nice padding, and a pass-through sternum strap as well. And that completes my favorite travel bag. If you'd like to grab this bag or any other Bellroy product, use the link in the description for 10% off. The next bad habit is setting expectations. Now, unless you have complete control of the entire universe, a lot of it is out of your control. So you could plan a shoot in a particular city, the forecast looks good, everything looks like it's gonna work out, and then you turn up and it starts raining, or a big lorry pulls up and blocks the view. That's out of your control. Equally, if you post a photo on Instagram and it gets X amount of likes, or it doesn't get those likes, that's also out of your control. Sure, if you post a photo of the pavement, it'll probably do a little worse than if you post a banger photo of Tower Bridge, but in reality, a lot of it is out of your control. I've posted photos that originally didn't do well to only blow up 6 months later. Equally, you have no control over what opportunities will come your way. As long as you put a work out there, you can't control what email you will get or who will see your work. So setting expectations around things that are completely out of your control within reason is only going to end up with you feeling rather disappointed. Instead, set expectations around things you can control. How many times you go and shoot, how much effort you put in, how much time you spend editing and trying to figure out your style. That's where you can set expectations, because when you set expectations around things that you can control, that's when good things tend to happen. The next bad habit is never shooting alone. Don't get me wrong, shooting with your friends is amazing. You get to see how other people work, you pick up new tricks, and you learn a different way of shooting. Equally, it's important to build a social circle around photography where you live, because let's face it, it can be a pretty lonely art form, especially if you're doing street photography. However, if you get into a habit of always relying on other people to shoot, that's going to hold you back so much, because some of the biggest lessons and progress you will make as a photographer is when you shoot alone. For example, when you're shooting with other people, even if they're giving you all the time in the world, you feel very conscious about taking their time. So if you come across a scene, rather than spending your time working it and getting the most out of it, you will just take the first shot you see and move on. Equally, if you're always reliant on other people to get you out of the house and shoot, that's a very easy excuse to not shoot at all if you don't have anyone around you. If all your friends are busy, you think, oh, okay, everyone's busy, I'm not going to shoot. And finally, if you're always shooting with other people, you can subconsciously start copying what they're doing and end up in a position where, again, you're not developing your own voice. So by all means, shoot with other people, build a solid group of friends around photography where you live and abroad. But also make sure that at least 50% of your photography is done on your own, because that is where you will grow the most. Acquiring new camera gear is fun. I don't believe anyone who says they don't enjoy buying new gear, and if they say that, they're either kidding themselves or just coping. The problem with acquiring too much gear, especially in the early days, is it gives you two limitations. The first one is if you're spending all your money on just lenses and bodies, you're acquiring gear, you're not acquiring experience. In the beginning, experience is what matters. So you're better off having a very small setup, but spending most of your money on travel or on photography lessons or on basically getting out there and shooting. The second limitation is that if you have a ton of gear, you can have like analysis paralysis, so to speak. You can have too much choice. Do you take the 50? Do you take the 35? Do you take the 40? Or the 35? Is the 35 better than the 40? Or the 40 better than the 35? You can see where this is going. It becomes very confusing. You'd think that having a large choice of lenses and bodies will give you more options and more freedom and make decision easier, but in fact, it's the opposite. There's a whole study about it, that the more options you give people, the longer they'll take to make a decision and the harder they'll find to make that decision. So when you're first starting out, having less gear will actually make photography easier for you and making decision making easier for you as well. Every time I go somewhere, I get bitten to absolute shreds. Look at the state of that. Jesus. The next bad habit is expecting recognition. Now, I've seen that firsthand both online and in person, and it usually comes from photographers who are perhaps a couple of years into their journey, that might have a few eyeballs on their work, but they feel like they deserve more. And I've had it personally where people would say, how come my work is better than yours, yet you have a bigger following? Or how come these kids on Instagram are producing mediocre work, yet I can't get booked and I'm a better photographer? You only need to check the comment section of a popular YouTuber or Instagram account with a big following to see a bunch of negative comments on those lines. And also, I personally know photographers who are genuinely upset that they're not getting the recognition they deserve, even though they believe their work is better and is superior to those who have a following online. Needless to say, going down this rabbit hole, shall we say, is only going to end up with you being frustrated and bitter. Yes, things are not fair. Some people will get a big break in their photography and will get more eyeballs, more jobs, more recognition than you will, even though they might have been doing it for 1/10 of the time and, in your opinion, are not as good as you. Yes, some people will spend 10 years grafting away and get nowhere, even though they are objectively or subjectively good, and others will pick up a camera and within a year have a 6-figure income and a big social media presence. Is that fair? No, but life isn't fair, and if you just harbor these negative thoughts and emotions and think that the world owes you something because you've been a photographer for X amount of years, or you think you're this good, the only person who will ultimately suffer is you, because no one else will get bothered by your bitterness. And this is a message that I would give to my friend who is literally like that. I think he's changed his ways recently, but yeah, so this is definitely a habit you want to avoid. The next bad habit ties in nicely with the previous point, and that is comparison and jealousy. You only need to open Instagram to see twats like me who are traveling and taking photos in cool places, and then you end up comparing that to your day-to-day life. Also, you have to remember that people online only share a small fraction of their portfolio. They share the best of the best. You know, there's a bunch of work that I don't share, and some of the stuff that I've deleted is horrible. I've made a few videos about it called My Rubbish Photography, where I show you every photo that I take on a day out, and 99% of it is garbage. But what you end up doing is you end up comparing the photos you took on a bang average day in cloudy England in February, and then you're comparing that with selected photos which make up 1% of someone's trip to Tokyo, or someone's summer trip across Greece, or other picturesque destination. And of course, if you're going to compare the two, you'll be disappointed. And the more you compare, the more you start harboring jealousy towards other people, and then that circle and spiral just gets worse and worse. And at the end of the day, you don't know what the other person is going through. You know nothing about a lot of people. A lot of very successful photographers online are broke. A lot of them are depressed, and there's so much behind the scenes that you simply don't know. There are some photographers that I used to really look up to that once I've met in real life, I realized they've got the same problems as I have, the same insecurities as I have, and they also think their own work sucks, even though they are 100 times as successful as me. So as cheesy as it sounds, avoid comparison and avoid jealousy, because in many cases you don't know exactly who you're comparing yourself to and who you're jealous of. And the final bad habit that we're all guilty of from time to time is being too addicted to social media. Now, I'm not going to be all cringy and say do a detox, delete the app and become a monk. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, how often do you find yourself, let's say, posting something and then constantly logging in to check how it's doing? Or perhaps you find yourself spending a lot of time on Instagram or social media, but you use the excuse of, well, I'm a photographer, I need to, stay up to date with what's going on. These excuses probably sound familiar because I believe that we all make them from time to time. And if you're not careful, you can get to a point where you're spending so much time glued to your phone and to social media that you just kind of miss out on everything else. Now, as I've said, this is not me saying delete it or don't use social media. I mean, if not for social media, none of us will be here. But it's more of a reminder that don't make it a habit to constantly keep checking and then using the excuse of this is what you do to keep checking. Alright, well that is all for this video. I hope you found it useful. If you have any questions, comments, please write them down below. We're about to go back into the Stampede over there because my mum wants to buy a bracelet from one of the tourist shops. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. But that's it. It's people shouting, not sure what they're saying. Anyway, see you in the next video. Bye bye.